Everyone, I think we'll get started now. Welcome to Tigray Youth Network's virtual protest. We're all here under very sad circumstances. A war has been waged on Tigray, and we're all here to condemn it. Tigray Youth Network actually came together on the basis of our passion and our angst for Tigray in this period. We came together to try to find solutions for the problems in Tigray. Today we have a lot lined up for you, so I'll go through that now and we'll get started. So we have our very own speakers who'll try their best to explain the complex political history of this war, and then they'll tell you about current issues present in Tigray. We have guest speakers who will answer your questions in the end. So the Q&A box will be open. You can drop your questions in there. And then throughout the protest as well, we'll encourage you to use the website www.standwithtigray.com and use their Twitter templates and email templates to join the campaign. And on the next page, if you can use this to or take a picture of it and tweet it, hashtag Stop War in Tigray, and we can see if we can get this trending. Yeah, so to start with, we will have Mary, who will explain the political history in English. Then we'll have Feleg, who will explain it in Amharic, and then we'll have Philemon, who will explain it in Tigrinya.
Thank you, Rita. The slide. Okay. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the recent history, just to give a little bit of context to what's happening now. After a series of emperors leading Ethiopia, in 1975, Haile Selassie was overthrown in a military coup, and by 1977, Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam emerges as the leader of the pro-Soviet military regime. Following the Red Terror and the worst famine seen in decades, the TPLF, which stands for Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, launches war for regional autonomy with the support of the EPLF, which stands for Eritrean People's Liberation Front, and other parties against this regime. After 17 years of fighting, in 1991, the TPLF led a coalition of movements named the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, EPRDF, after capturing Addis Ababa, forcing Mengistu to flee the country, establishing the transitional government of Ethiopia. In August 1995, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia is proclaimed, with Meles Zenawi the assumed prime minister, and a new constitution which divides Ethiopia into 9 regions. Meanwhile, Eritrea becomes independent following a referendum which this new constitution allowed in 1993. Leaving Ethiopia to be led by the EPRDF, a coalition of 4 parties, the ODP, ADP, SEPDM, and TPLF. Later on, in 1998 to 2000, there was the Ethiopian-Eritrean border war, which was eventually resolved in 2018 with Abiy Ahmed's peace deal that has still not had the terms of the agreement revealed. From 1995 to 2012, Meles Zenawi was the elected Prime Minister of Ethiopia until his untimely death in August 2012, whereby he is succeeded by Foreign Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn in September. After the non-stop anti-government protests, Prime Minister Haile Mariam resigns in February 2018. This is when Abiy Ahmed becomes the leader of the EPRDF and therefore the Prime Minister. He then went on to dissolve EPRDF and formed a new party called the Prosperity Party, in which was constitutionally illegal, so the TPLF did not participate in this merger. As well as this, Abiy had denied foreign investors access to Tigray and blocking flights for Chinese experts working in Tigray, while also suspending budget allocated to Tigray in October, on top of denying assistance to Tigray farmers with the locust invasion. Meanwhile, moving troops from all over Ethiopia to the Tigray border, allowing mass ethnic killings in the Amhara region, ignoring people's cry to keep troops for their safety, much like in Western Wallagga, an area which was under command post to protect civilians at risk from rebel groups. After Abiy Ahmed cancelled elections using COVID-19 as an excuse, the TPLF asked the National Election Board of Ethiopia to help Tigray set up regional elections, but this request was denied. So the TPLF went on to work with opposition parties to set up its own election board to oversee their regional elections. Following the constitution, which states elections should be held every 5 years, the 2020 Tigray regional election was held on the 9th of September. It was open to international observers and 2.7 million people participated in this election. Abiy Ahmed has publicly stated that the federal government will not recognize the results of this election and ban foreign journalists from traveling to Tigray to document these elections. In late September 2020, the TPLF stated the constitutional term limit of the House of People's Representatives, the Prime Minister, and the Council of Ministers was the 5th of October 2020. And for that reason, it will consider them constitutionally illegal after this date, having kept a member of TPLF until this date. In November, tensions with the Tigray region escalated after a state election deemed unconstitutional and defense attack on the North Command Post, as federal government sends in troops. Thank you. Fellow, would you like to say it now?
ረት ፓርቲ ተደራጁ ከ1995 ዓመተ ምህረት ክቡር አቶ መለስ ዜናዊ በጠቅላይ ሚኒስትርነት በመሾም ኢትዮጵያን ወደ ዲሞክራቲክ ህገ መንግስታዊ ስርዓት አገሪቷን እየመሩ አንዳንድ ለውጦችን በማሳየት ጀመሩ። በህገ መንግስቱ ስርዓት የኢትዮጵያ ህጋዊ አመራር በክልልና በብሔር ብሔረሰቦች ፍላጎት በመጠበቅ በዘጠኝ ክልሎች ሆኖ አገሪቷን በማስተዳደር ቀጠሉ። 1999 እስከ 2000 በተካሄደው የድንበር ጦርነት ከሁለቱም አገሮች ብዙ መስዋዕትነት ተከፍሏል። ኢፒአርዲኤፍ በመራው ወቅት በተለይ ከመለስ ሞት በኋላ ብዙ ቅሬታዎች እና የዲሞክራሲው መጥበብ በአብዛኛው ሰው ደስተኛ አልነበረም። ብዙም ለውጥ ያስፈልግ ስለነበር በ2018 ዓመተ ምህረት የዶክተር አብይ ሽግግር መሪነት ከፕሬዝዳንት ኢሳያስ ጋር በመሆን ከኤርትራ ጋር በፈጸሙት እርቅ ኖቤል ፒስ ፕራይዝ ተሸልሟል። እርቁም ግልጽ እና ስምምነቱ ታዋቂ ባይሆንም ሁኔታው የህዝብ ለህዝብ ግንኙነት አልነበረም። እስከ 2012 መለስ ዜናዊ ተሽሞ የኢትዮጵያ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ሆኖ አስተዳደረ። ክቡር አቶ መለስ ዜናዊ በነሐሴ 2012 ከዚህ ዓለም በሞት ተለየን። በዚህ ምክንያት በዛን ሰዓት የነበረ የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለ ማርያም ደሳለኝ የሽግግር ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ሆኖ አገሪቷን መሩ። ከብዙ ተቃዋሚ አስተጽዕኖ በኋላ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ኃይለ ማርያም ደሳለኝ በየካቲት 2018 ስልጣናቸውን ለቀቁ። በሚያዝያ 2018 አቢይ አህመድ በኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ሳይሆን በራሱ ፓርቲ ኢፒአርዲኤፍ ተመረጠ። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትሩ የኢትዮጵያን ህገ መንግስት በመጣስ የራሳቸውን ብልጽግና ፓርቲ መስርቶ መምራት ጀመረ። ይሄን ግን ቲፒኤልኤፍ አልተቀበሉትም። ከተመረጠ ጀምሮ ኢፒአርዲኤፍ የሰራውን ስህተቶች በሙሉ ወደ ቲፒኤልኤፍ በመወንጀል የትግራይ ህዝብም እንደ ህዝብ አንገቱ የሚያስደፋ ስሞችን በመለጠፍ ዶክዩሜንተሪ ፊልሞችን በማቀናበር በሌላው ህዝብ ብሔሮች እንዲጠላና እንዲጠረጠር የጥላት ዘመቻ አካሄደ። በመቀጠል መንገድ ሲዘጋ ምንም እርምጃ ባለመውሰድ የውጭ ኢንቨስተሮች ወደ ትግራይ እንዳይገቡ በመከልከል ቁልፍ ቦታ ላይ ሲሰሩ የነበሩ ተጋሩ በማንነታቸው ከስራ ማባረር እና ማሰር፣ ለትግራይ የተመደበላትን ባጀት በመከልከል ለትግራይ በኢኮኖሚ ለመጉዳት ብዙ ሙከራ ሲያደርግ ቆይቶ በመስከረም 9 2020 በህገ መንግስቱ መሰረት ትግራይ ምርጫ እንደምታካሄድ ገለጸች። ግን አብይ አህመድ ምርጫ መካሄድ ነበረበት በመስከረም 2020 ግን በኮሮና ምክንያት አድርጎ ምርጫው እንዳካሄድ ያደረገ። ትግራይ ትብብር ከፌዴራል መንግስት ብትጠይቅም ተቀባይነት አላገኘችም። ሆኖም ግን ትግራይ ህገ መንግስቱን በሰጣት ነፃነት ተጠቅማ ውጤታማ ምርጫ የሆነ አካሄደች። ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር አብይ አህመድ ይህን ምርጫ ህገወጥ ነው ብሎ አወጀ። የውጭ ሀገር ጋዜጠኞችም ወደ ትግራይ ምርጫ ዶክመንት ለማድረግ እንዳይገቡ ከለከለ።
So Philemon, I think we'll be covering it in Tigrinya, please.
يسمع له دمزاي؟
Yeah, يسمع له.
Yeah, أتمنى حواتي بزول أدمان يشتي بتجرينيا كلل بزول ملكعو كقرو مكوريا. دحرنا نوح ناي مسافة تمجزات بعشر شعات 94 هذه سلاسة بوتادراتهم نفهم كلام قصتي تغير لهم بعشر شعات 94 نايزي وتدراو سرعات مراحي كونريل منكس هاي المرام كوين تشيمو بدرج جزء أبي إثيوبيا أيحر عدي بزول زمتها وزح من سيات مهران ترشينهم أبز جزء تميت ويخا دركي بفلاي أول لون تجراين ترايني رومالتي وزح هذا تجراي دما ناو سودان كسدت تجديلو أبلع هذا تجراي بهراو تكونان اللون سلاززحة تزين مكات دما برساو قالسي جمر هوحات مس إرتراز نورة قالستي جنبار ركب بمقار حوراو قالسي أبلعلي والتادراوي منكستي إثيوبيا قالسي جمرو ماتي دحري نعصرت شعات عامتات وزوحات مساءات استخفلو مرير قالسي مس قالت قالستي إثيوبيا حراوي سمعنت بمقار يهودق زبل يمسرتو مات بز مخنيات منقس هاي لماريام اتخنتات كتصارس زي خالد دما هاجر قديفو ناو زمباوي اتو مالسي ناي شيقر منقس دما يمسرت بعصر شعاتة 95 فيدرالاوي ريبابليك إثيوبيا تمسرت ملس زيناو دما كم تغلال مينستر خويني مرز حدش حق منقستي ويخاق قوام بتشعات تخللات بزلو ايز ادق بعصر شعات 93 حزب إرترا ريفرندم بمقار إرترا هاجر تخون كاب عصر شعات 98 كشع كلتشح بسنكي نايدوم السحاب كينات أمونغو إثيوبيان إرترا نكايل لعلي 100 شح ويخاقون العلي مالتيو السبب ما يموت أبي أحمد كم تتفلتوا ناف سلطان مسمتة أمونغو إرتران إثيوبيان ناي سلام وعلي في السام انتاي كم تتوعالو زي فلت دو استوسنك زي تخفيتو خاو يعتصو مالتي اتركب أمونغو أبيين إساياسن دما خوينو كسع لما عنتي يغصل له مالتي ندحريت تملسنا دما كعصر شعات 95 كشع 15 دخلتن ملس زيناوي كم طلال المينستر إثيوبيا بمخان بب 5 عمت أستخايد مرصا تمريصو يغلغل نير مالتي يخن دامبر نحاسه 2009 نحاسه 2010 دخلتن بحمام مخنيات يسوا هايل ماريم دسالين دما سلطان يركب مالتي 2018 أبي إثيوبيا بستلعله حيال نعبي ويكا صار منجستي هايل ماريم دسالين كاب سلطانو بفقادي لقا بزنا عب مخنيات أبي أحمد نايهودق لكامبر خويني مرز لك نايهودق لكامبر كينو مستمرتة تغلاي ميستر خوني وقع مالتي زي አብይ አሕመድ እቲ ዝነበረ ኢህወደግ ብምፍራስ ብልጽግና ዝብል ፓርቲ ምስርት ማለት እዩ ህወሓት እዚ ዘይሕጋዊ ጥምረት ኣባል ካብ ምዃድ ድማ ትግደብ ብምኽንያት ሕማም ኮሮና ቫይረስ ብዝብል ምኽንያት አብይ አሕመድ መረፃ 2020 ከይተኻየደ ይቐርብ ማለት እዩ መንግስቲ ትግራይ በቲ ሕገ መንግስቲ መሰረት ግን ንብሔራዊ ምርጫ ቦርድ ትግራይ ናይ ክልል መረፃ ክትገብር ትሓትት ማለት እዩ ኮይኑ ግና እቲ ምርጫ ቦርድ ትሕቶ ናይ ትግራይ ይነጽዶ ማለት እዩ ህወሓት ምስ ትግራይ ዘሎ ኣብ ትግራይ ዘለዋ ተቃውምቲ ውድባት ብምዝራብ ናይ ባዕላ ምርጫ ቦርድ ብምስራት መስከረም 9 መረፃ ተካይድ ንዓለም ለኸ ተዓዘብትን ሚድያታትን ክፍቲ ብምግባር 2.7 ሚልዮን ህዝብ ብዘተሳተፈሉ ዕውት መረፃ ድማ ይካየድ ማለት እዩ መንግስቲ አብይ ግን እቲ መረፃ ዘይሕጋዊ ከም ዝኾነን ዓለም ለኸ ሚድያታት ወይ ከዓ ተዓዘብቲ ናብ ትግራይ ከይኣቱ ይእግድ በዚ መሰረት ካብ ጥቅምቲ 5 ጀሚሩ መንግስቲ ትግራይ ናይ አብይ መንግስቲ ሕጋዊ መንግስቲ ከም ዘይኾነን ብሕገ መንግስቲ መሰረት ቅቡልነት ከዘይብሉን ይገልጽ ኣብዚ ኩነታት እዩ ደኣ ኣፈ ጉባኤ ናይ ቤት ምክሪ ፌደሬሽን ኢትዮጵያ ዝነበራ ወይዘሮ ኪርያ ኢብራሂም ዘይሕጋዊ ኣሰራርሓ ብምቋም ስልጣነን ጥቅምቲ 5 ይለቃ ሕዳር 4 2020 መንግስቲ ትግራይ ኣብ ልዕሊ ሰሜን እዚ ኣብ ትግራይ ዝርከብ ሰራዊት ኩናት ከፊቱ ብዝብል ምስሙስ ወይ ከዓ ጥቆና መንግስቲ አብይ ብዕሊ ኩናት ኣብ ልዕሊ ህዝብን መንግስቲ ትግራይ ኩናት ኣውጁ ያኔለይ
Thank you, Philemon, and Mary and Feleg as well. We do understand that the politics or the political history of this war is very complex. And that's the reason we tried to explain it in all 3 languages. But yeah, we hope it makes it less difficult to understand. Next, Melat, who you'll probably recognize from the London protests, will go through the breach of constitution that Abiy Ahmed has committed and any international law breaches as well. Melat, are you here? Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'll be diving into the constitutional breaches in terms of the Ethiopian constitution. I'll touch base on the international law aspect of things, but it won't be as in-depth as the Ethiopian constitution. So to begin, as we all have witnessed in the last 45 days, we've had credible reports of extreme human rights violations, negligence of international law, as well as the Ethiopian constitution itself. To understand the leadership that is currently in Addis Ababa today, I thought we should just skim over the various types of leadership that currently run sovereign states. Although I'm confident most of you probably be aware of this, it will help contextualize the information that will precede it. So the different types of leadership that we can opt for as a sovereign state would be, one would be a democracy, which feasibly, we're told Ethiopia is. This is seen to be an ideal form of leadership in the world today, where the leadership are elected into their respective positions under a free electoral system, which participation of other political parties is unhindered and is actually encouraged. A dictatorship, which is a rule of one individual with absolute power over the state and is not accountable or subject to law. A dictator has or requires no consent of the greater population. And then we go on to a monarchy. So a monarchy is a single person who governs, but they still usually govern on the basis of fixed and established laws. A communist state, which is also a form of government with power resting in a one-party system. A communist party guarantees the dominant role in government. However, there's a difference between a communist state and a one-party system in the fact that a communist state is led by a Marxist rule. Many dictators have respective titles. We probably all know a couple, and some of them are deemed to be prime ministers, presidents. So these titles seem a bit empty. Examples of these are the infamous President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea, the President Kim Jong-un, I don't know how to say his name, of North Korea. As we have heard, the current situation in Tigray has been falsely labeled as a law enforcement operation. The problem with this is we have to question what checks and balances are there that doesn't allow those in position to manipulate and abuse their power in the name of upholding the law. We also have to ask about the law enforcement that should take place upon these individuals and the institutions whose very responsibility has been to ensure that the law is effectively practiced. Upon my research into the current political turmoil in Ethiopia, I have found that there's been many constitutional breaches which have been so massively manipulated that the objective of the Ethiopian constitution itself has almost become worthless. If we separate the Ethiopian constitution into subsections of the rights of the individual to life, their right to life, the rights of the individual to freedom of speech and expression, the rights of the regional states, we can identify breaches of all the above. So the rights to the individual citizen in the rights of the individual to life has been breached in a number of articles within the constitution. I'll just try to skim over some of them. So the articles 10, I'll try to say some of them in Amharic so that you know the direct translation of them in the Amharic constitution. This is, so Article 10, the human and democratic rights, አንቀጽ 10 ሰብአዊ ዲሞክራሲያዊ መብቶች፣ Article 15, right to life, አንቀጽ 15 የህይወት መብት፣ Article 16, rights of security of a person, አንቀጽ 16 የአካል ደህንነት መብት፣ Article 18, prohibition against inhumane treatment, አንቀጽ 18 ሰብአዊ አያያዝ sorry, I can't say the word. Article 89, which is economic objectives. አንቀጽ 89 ኢኮኖሚ ነክ ዓላማዎች፣ አንቀጽ 90 which is ማህበራዊ ነክ ዓላማዎች, Article 90 social objectives, and lastly Article 87 principle of national defense, which is አንቀጽ 87. The clear disregard of the basic human rights of the individuals as per the Ethiopian constitution has been reported by the witnesses in Sudan. So we've got over 50,000 refugees currently in Sudan now who have reported seeing mass atrocities. The use of the Amhara militias and the support of the ENDF has allowed this force to merge into one. Refugees accounts such as Huit, who was interviewed by the CNN, reports things such as the militiamen shooting him in the leg, eventually throwing him in the river. He was saved by his fellow refugees who practically had to fish him out of the river. And there has been many horrific murders of youngsters who've been gunned down whilst protecting their neighborhood from being looted by Eritrean troops, such as Noor Hussein Noor and Naoud Muez. So these are just some breaches of the rights to the individual in terms of their right to life. The rights of the individual in terms of freedom of speech and expression is also shown in Article 17, የነጻነት መብት, Article 29, rights of thought, opinions and expression, አንቀጽ 29 የአመለካከት እና የሀሳቦች በነጻ የመያዝ እና የመግለጽ መብት, Article 89, mentioned once again, economic objectives, and አንቀጽ 91, which is የባህል ነክ ዓላማዎች, cultural objectives. The CPJ, which is the Committee to Protect Journalists, have reported the arrest of Medhana Nkuba Michael from Addis Standard, who was actually arrested on November the 10th. So this was after the war was waged on Tigray, for supposedly dismantling the constitution through violence. CPJ themselves have actually noted that he had led the coverage of the friction of the federal government of Ethiopia against the regional government of Tigray. So although this dismantling of the constitution has been the reason for his arrest, many international institutions have indicated otherwise. Some of the high profile arrests include Haftu Gebra Xabir, Eggai Haddish, Abraha Hagos, and OMN's Udi Musa, who has been arrested, has faced no interrogation, or hasn't even been presented in court. The looting of the mosques by Eritrean troops has given the environment and the platform created by the federal government for artifacts from Tigray to be stolen and taken to other parts of the country, or maybe outside the country into even Eritrea. So this actually defies Article 91 of the Ethiopian Constitution, which states that the government and all Ethiopian citizens have the duty to protect the country's natural endowment, historical sites and objects, which have also been subjected to heavy bombardment, as per satellite images have indicated. Also, just to dive into the violation of the constitutional rights in terms of the regional state, we again find many articles that have been ignored, or a better way to put it is maybe rather manipulated. We have been witness to the transgression towards the constitutional laws. Some of them today include Article 50, which is the structure of the organ of the state, Ank as Hamsa. Again, 89, economical objective, Economina Kalamoch, Article 62, power and functions of the House of Federation, Article 79, which is the judicial power, Yedanyinnet Sultan, Article 87 and Article 88 have also been breached, which is Yepolitika Alamoch. It's also important to focus on Article 62. So Article 62 forces the House of Federation to find solution to disputes or misunderstanding that may rise between the states. So interstate, sorry. And notably, the Amhara and Tigrayans have had regional border issues previously in the previous governments before EPRDF, as the land grabbing had been an element of the rule of the Derg regime as well, and even before that, Abiy Ahmed has used elements of this. So a promise to the Amhara in terms of land, which is now actually in place. So a lot of Western Tigray is now actually being administrated by Amhara militias or representatives. The Ethiopian Commission Board, which is headed by Daniel Bekele, which is also an influential body of previously of Amnesty International, which we notably did the reporting of the Mayakadra atrocities. Again, this commission board has refused international investigation into war crimes in the region. We have to ask ourselves why the Ethiopian government continues to reject international observers and international actors coming into Tigray to witness what's going on. If the constitutional obligations have been executed accordingly, and if they are sure that there's a separation of judicial bodies as well as the commission boards that are on the ground. Another major constitutional violation would be the initiative taken not to hold the general election as per Article 54 of the Ethiopian Constitution. Although this was put down to the implication of COVID-19, we have all noted that the Prime Minister had not set a date or made any suggestions as to when Ethiopia would proceed into a fairly and elected democratic leadership. So these kind of point out some of the article breaches within the Ethiopian Constitution. A lot of the narrative that is coming currently from the federal government has been that the law has, there needs to be law enforcement in Tigray. However, we need to ask who is going to hold the institutions in Addis Ababa accountable. Who is going to hold them accountable if many of the bodies that the commission board and the electoral board, all of these have been elected by the Prime Minister himself and have had issues maybe with the previous leadership. So can we really trust them to be neutral in this respect? Which is why we demand and call for international investigations, which we see to be more neutral than the bodies that are on the ground in Ethiopia right now. Some of the international law breaches, to quickly skim over, is the R2P law. The refugees have the right of protection by the Ethiopian government. As we know, there's 4 refugee camps in Tigray right now. There's over 94,000 refugees in Tigray, who we've had credible reports and we've had statements that have been given by the UN themselves that have said they've heard alarming reports of the refugees being returned to Eritrea, which is a major violation of international refugee rights, and would make Abiy Ahmed liable to stand in international courts. Again, we can't confirm this because we have no eyes or ears on the ground. And again, I come back to the point, why do we have no eyes or ears on the ground? Yeah, so that will be me.
Thank you, Milat. As she said, there's been a ridiculous number of law breaches in Ethiopia because of Abiy Ahmed. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali is a war criminal and needs to be put to justice. So yeah, next we have Selam. Are you here?
Yeah.
Who will be giving us a quick summary of the war so far and where it's at now, what's going on the ground now. Go.
Thank you, Rita. So for the past 46 days since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed waged war on the Tigray region, the conflict has spiraled out of control. There have been multiple incredible reports of shortages of water, fuel, and medical supplies, humanitarian access being blocked, electricity, internet and phone lines cut out in Tigray, involvement of UAE drones and Eritrean military and Fano militia engaged in ethnic cleansing, daily bombings on civilians, women and children being raped, killed and attacked, young men being targeted, tortured and killed, and not to mention the genocide alert of stage 9 extermination. There has also been recent news of factories, places of worship, historical sites, universities, hospitals, farms and homes being destroyed and looted. The Eritrean Catholic bishop advised against purchasing such looted goods that have been brought into the country. Also, cross-border attack on the Sudanese territories by Ethiopian forces, which Egypt has sent their condolences and are backing Sudan. Still, many of these issues subsist, such as electricity, phone lines, and internet remain off in most places in Tigray. Phone lines were recently opened only in Mekelle. However, reports of calls being tapped meant families couldn't openly talk about the tragic reality they're facing, in fear of punishment or even death. Banks remain closed, causing countless on the verge of starvation or possibly famine. Accounts say that some are drinking boiled water to keep their bellies warm. In addition, before the war, Tigray were already fighting the swarm of locusts without government help. The Tagalo diaspora raised money to send over a drone to help, which was seized in Addis Ababa. Simultaneously, the battle against COVID-19 intensifies. Ethnic profiling, house searches and mass arrests continue, as well as many facing rejection to board Ethiopian Airlines. Every day, the number of innocent civilians being affected are increasing. Currently, thousands are being displaced. Over 50,000 Tagalos have fled to Sudan since November. Some made the dangerous journey whilst injured and even pregnant. Still, restricted humanitarian access persists, leaving 2.3 million children in need of humanitarian aid and assistance. There is a strict curfew of 6 p.m. or people risk being punished. There's even been a report of a man being killed because of this. Moreover, there are concerns about the Eritrean refugees in Tigray that are being abducted and or killed, the 4 aid workers killed in Tigray, and the lack of independent journalist access in Tigray. Since the start of the war, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made a number of false claims. These include stating the war has ended due to the capture of Mekelle on November 28th. However, there are reports of continued fighting on multiple fronts. Abiy Ahmed said the Ethiopian National Defense Force had not killed any civilians, despite multiple Tigrayan civilians that fled the conflict. Report sightings of bombings by government warplanes, shooting on the streets, and innocent people attacked with machetes. The Prime Minister also said there were no women and children in the Sudan refugee camp, and the United Refugee Agency then released a report that estimated 45% of children are children and 43% are women. There have also been multiple negations of Eritrea's involvement in this war, although the US State Department spokesperson asked for withdrawal of Eritrean forces in Tigray as they were made aware of Eritrea's hand in the conflict. The office of Abiy Ahmed denied blocking aid in Tigray, saying that the claims of humanitarian assistance being hindered due to ongoing combat is, quote, untrue. On-ground aid agencies reveal otherwise and say blocked access, delays, and violence against staff has prevented aid delivery. The Red Cross also mentioned that they have run out of body bags for deceased and reported the most cases they're dealing with is trauma injuries to the head. Overall, the war was claimed to last only a few days, and here we are on day 46. Many of us still without contact of family, only with the thought of them living in darkness, starvation, and fear, or even the unimaginable worst-case scenario. Abiy Ahmed has told lies on multiple occasions and has imprisoned people that have called him out. He has involved other countries and militia to help him destroy 6% of Ethiopia's population. It's clear that the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his administration are not trustworthy and Tigray needs international intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Salam. Yeah, so as Salam said, there is still a war going on in Tigray, despite what Abiy Ahmed and his team says. So we do need to keep fighting, keep talking about it as much as we can. Next, we'll have Maddie, who will talk about the demands that we have for the people of Tigray. Maddie here.
Hi guys, my name is Maddie, and as Rita said, I'll be taking you through our demands. So our demands are simple. Fundamentally, we want this war to stop, but what does this mean? Firstly, we want all artillery bombs, rockets, drones, attacks to imminently stop. All invaders, including troops from Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia out of Tigray, to allow humanitarian aid access into Tigray, to stop the blockade of refugee movements. We demand all political prisoners to be released. We demand the immediate lift of the communication blockout. It's our right to know if our families are dead or alive. To allow international journalists into Tigray to independently assess what has been happening to Tigray, its land and its people since the 3rd of November. To allow the independent investigation of war crimes. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has committed numerous war crimes according to the United Nations Office of Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect. These include intentionally directing attacks against the civilians population or against individual civilians, not taking part in hostilities, returning the Tigrayan refugees from Sudan and blocking their escape, ordering the displacement of civilian population for reasons related to the conflict, intentionally directing attacks against buildings dedicated to religion, education, art, science, or charitable purposes, historic monuments, hospitals, and places where the sick and wounded are collected, destroying and seizing property of the opposition, intentionally using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare by depriving them of objects indispensable to their survival, including willfully impeding relief supplies as provided for under the Geneva Conventions. We demand International Criminal Court to sanction Ethiopia for these war crimes. We also demand Eritrea to be sanctioned for the war crimes. Among the many war crimes Isaias Afwerki has committed, here are a few regarding his complete involvement in this war. There are over 100,000 Eritrean refugees across Ethiopia, largely in Tigray. An Eritrean army has overrun their camps and is reportedly forcibly conscripting youth, while the Ethiopian federal government is proposing to send over hundreds of Eritreans who made it as far as Addis Ababa back to Tigray, likely into the hands of the Eritrean army. This constitutes as a war crime as it's completely illegal to send refugees back to the place where they fled. The Ethiopian federal forces and militia and Eritrean army are violating prohibition on using starvation as a weapon. These violations demand an international investigation. We also demand the UAE to be sanctioned for their involvement in this war. The UAE is aiding and abetting war crimes. its collaboration with Ethiopia and Eritrea by supplying the drones used to bomb and kill innocent civilians all over Tigray. Aid workers are now reporting civilian deaths caused by Emirati drones. Fundamentally, we demand access into Ethiopia so that an international independent inquiry by the UN and NGOs to know exactly what's happening in Tigray. There is an urgent need for this access after the report released by Amnesty International of the massacre in Maikadra, Tigray. There are hundreds of civilians stabbed and hacked to death with knives and machetes. This constitutes as a war crime. Why won't Abiy allow independent access to find out what really happened and who the real perpetrators are of this horrendous crime? In a recent interview with Minister of Democratization Zadig Abraha on DWTV, this exact question was asked of him, to which he derailed the conversation by stating Africans should be allowed to manage their own issues with their own institutions. Now, how does a key party of this conflict also play a role of an independent observer? Not only does this constitute as a conflict of interest, but it should be a huge wake-up call to the whole international community to intervene into our incompetent government. We ask of the UK government to use stronger powers to stand against this war, if it really believes in democracy. Lastly, I would like to bring attention to the bodies of power who stopped this discussion from happening. And as you can see by this picture, IGAD, UN, and the African Union have failed Tigray by their passive actions. The African Union has failed Ethiopia. There has been no African Union Peace and Security Council meeting on this topic. South Africa discouraged the UN Security Council from discussing the conflict. The African Union envoys were rebuffed. On the 13th of December, Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok announced an emergency summit of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, so IGAD, on Ethiopia. His initiatives need the highest level of international backing, however, there hasn't been any thus far. Under the UN Security Council Resolution 2417 of May 2018, the United Nations Secretary General is required to report swiftly to the Council on any situation of armed conflict that has threatened this widespread food insecurity. The Ethiopian and Eritrean war in Tigray precisely such a scenario for enticing this provision. As you can see, our demands are clear. Stop the war on Tigray, and thank you.
Thank you, Madeleine. As she said, she highlighted every single demand that we do have. And when you do tweet, when you do advocate for Tigray, please try to echo everything she said. Before we move on to our Q&A, we have a guest who needs to go very shortly. Kaset, are you here? She's been very vocal, very active in all of this. And we've just asked her to say a few words. So if you can go, Kaset.
Thank you so much, and well done to every single one of you. What you all have is phenomenal, and I appreciate it very much, and I'm sure everybody else in the world will appreciate understanding just how in-depth this conflict is, and that it's not just a simple tribal war as many people are going to try and make it out to be. I guess today I just want to express how I feel about it all. Is that what is expected in this kind of scenario? The feelings are, my feelings, as with all of yours, would be something that's very hard and changing and fluctuating every single day, because for me, not only has Abiy Ahmed waged a war on the people that are living in Tigray, he has waged this war on the ethnicity of all Tagaru around the world. So every single person with Tigrayan heritage, background, children are impacted by this war, not only because their existence and where they will fit in after this war is over, but for their family. Everything is for the family and for the family members back home. the humanitarian crisis that is looming and that we are seeing being portrayed is not something you would expect to see in the 21st century, when all governments around the world have been trying to act in some kind of democratic way. We see that Ethiopia was a democratic government, and for it to slip and slide back into a way of the 18th century just really blows my mind. So I'm here, I guess, just today in support of everybody on the ground, everybody who has had to flee their homes, everybody who is internally displaced, and every single Tagaro, Tigrawe, Tigraweti outside of the country, and every other lover of this country. I think this war has shown that there are a lot of people like me out there who love Tigray very much. The history of the Aksumites is just phenomenal, and we as Western, or well, I'm not Western European, but we as Europeans owe a lot to the life of the Aksumites and the way they have fought and the way they have taught many scholars throughout the years, the way that their impact and their trade has impacted on many like technological advances within the European continent. So this is a war for me, not on just the people, on history itself, on a piece of the planet that was just starting to be uncovered and discovered by the world, and it should be stopped by every single international player. As you've said, the AU has done absolutely nothing, and it's disgraceful to think that a Pan-African movement is going to do absolutely nothing on the founder of history within Africa. So please, modern history within Africa. It's just it's shameful. It's humiliating. IGAD themselves, or IGAD, is just, it just breaks my heart to see, especially the brothers. They're basically brothers in the continent, and every single family member is being impacted by this. And my plea is just for the Western world to do what the African world is failing to do, and to support their family in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Cassidy has been amazing, speaking whenever she can for us. So we really appreciate all your work. Next, we will have Tigray, another activist from Sweden, who's been working tirelessly for the sake of Tigray. We have one question for you, which has been asked really commonly. It's on Tigray independence. Will Tigray be independent? And is it possible? Are you here? Is Tigray here?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I would like to start by first saying thank you to you, Rita, and all of you in Manchester and London who organized this event, and the actual demonstration you have on in London. It was a very successful demonstration, and I would strongly recommend other people in other cities to look up to you guys and do similar things in other cities as well. I think we should do our best to shed as much light as possible in this to the situation, because I really don't think many people know what is transpiring in the darkness that Abiy Ahmed has created in Tigray. But I think this is the least we can do to our people. I think I'm sure I can safely say this on behalf of everyone here, all the people in the panel and all the people who have tuned in to follow us. This is the least we can do. I know it's very difficult time. We have busy schedule, but given the enormous, extraordinary suffering that people are going through in Ethiopia, this pales into nothing really. So regarding the question, before I shouldn't digress into other topics. Regarding the question, I think it's a very difficult question. My gut feeling is that people think pushing for independence now would be a kind of cop out now. There is a tendency that like people tend to believe that we should do everything possible to try to see if the federation could work, because there is advantage in staying in the union, undeniable advantage. There is bigger market, there is historical ties, there is all sorts of reasons for people to think, but at least when they feel good, that we should try everything possible to try to stay in the federation. So independence, my sense is that independence is something that we should do as a last resort, not something that we should that should come to our mind every time we face a problem in the Ethiopian project. And it's a project, although it's a failing project now. But given that there hasn't been any sense of solidarity, given that we have been left alone, there seemed to be a consensus now towards wanting independence. But it's a very difficult question to answer. So maybe it's something that we should put in the back burner for now and try to bring the war to a stop, and then as a people we will sit down and try to charter our own future. So it's a very difficult question to answer, but my sense is that people think that would be a cop-out thing to try.
Yeah, for sure. To highlight, we're for whatever the people of Tigray are for. So whatever they vote for in the end, the rest of us should support them, is my thinking. Okay, thank you, Tigray. Next, to highlight what is going on the ground, if we could have Allah Solomon, if you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Thank you. He's been speaking every day on this topic and shedding light on exactly what's going on the ground. So we'd like to hear more on what is going on the ground. What's going on in Tigray, Allah?
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to appreciate for the initiative that you guys, especially from UK, I think, or Europe in general, are taking. So it's a privilege for me to be here and speak to you. So yeah, what's happening, and I would like to speak on that. But before that, I want to say a few words as a background of to the events unfolding in our country, or specifically in Tigray region. So here is the thing: Ethiopia, in the late 19th century, it's created as a result of the conquest. Menelik II implemented across different parts of the country, including Tigray. By the way, there was conquest against Tigrayans after the Battle of Adwa by Menelik invading forces. So given this, all these factors, Ethiopia has never been a country of equality since its inception. Well, Meles and his comrades tried to fix that in 1991. There was an attempt to take Ethiopia from empire to federation, but that didn't materialize. As we speak, Abiy actually took the country back to square one, pre-1991 Ethiopia. What we have right now is an Ethiopia that we, as people, experienced it in the late 19th century. An Ethiopia that rulers tried to create in the image of Amhara, the culture, the language, the religion, everything. So there is a very, very striking similarity between the Ethiopia that Menelik tried to create and his Menelik and his successors until 1991 tried to create and what Abiy is trying to do right now. There is very, very striking similarities between these two Ethiopias. So I call this project, this war on Tigray, as a genocidal war project of making Ethiopia Amhara again. So, because in 19th century, people, it was a history of conquest in the late 19th century. Menelik was assimilating different ethnic groups in Ethiopia with the Amhara identity, culture, language, etc., and taking their lands, properties, looting, killing, all that. So this is exactly what's happening in Tigray right now. They told us that they took back their territories. They told us that they actually answered their territorial claims that they have been fighting for since the time of EPRDF, since 1991. So on top of that, the Amhara regional officials are now speaking using their own state media that the Benshangul Gumuz people are cannibals, they are savage, they were actually taught to become civilized by the Amhara. This is what we are listening right currently from the state media, not from ordinary people, not from activists or from political parties leaders. We are listening this from the very people that are governing the Amhara region right now. So it's a state policy. It's not something something you consider as a contesting narrative from political elites or from political parties. Because it's been there, political parties and elites have been presenting it as a contesting narrative since 1991. But now it's a state policy. It's in Arat Kilo. So I want to say this as a background. So what's happening right now is a result of all this process. Ethiopia is now, as a federation, it's a failed state. Well, if they can continue, these people who are trying to make it an empire, if they can succeed, we'll see. But right now, Ethiopia has embarked to a pre-1991 political status as a country. So as a result of this, in fact, I want to mention one striking similarity between the late 19th century Ethiopia and the Ethiopia that we have right now. There is another striking similarity, and that is collaborating with foreign invader in order to conquer your own citizens, in order to subjugate your own citizens, in order to control a territory within the federation. Now we have Eritrean soldiers in Tigray. They are killing, maiming, looting Tigray. And Menelik had the same experience with the Italians. He gave them Eritrea, which was at that time part of the Tigray or the Tigrinya-speaking territory. But there was no Eritrea before that. It's a result of colonial conquest, by the way. Eritrea, the project itself, is a result of just like we have what we have in Africa. All the boundaries are outcomes of colonial treaties. So now Eritrea, even though it had secured its independence in 1993, 1991 as a de facto state, and 1993 as an internationally recognized country, following the referendum that has been held in 1993, it became a country, an independent, separate country. So its relationship with Ethiopia is just like that of the relationship we have with Djibouti, Kenya, Somalia, and so on. So, but Eritrea is now involved to conquer Tigray, to subjugate, to kill, to loot Tigrayans. So Menelik used the same approach to subjugate all the ethnic groups in Ethiopia, including Tigray. So we have a very, very striking similarities between these two political, what you call it, periods in Ethiopian history. The late 19th century Menelik Ethiopia, and the Abiy Ahmed Ethiopia since the 2018 political reform or transition. So this is as a background. I want you guys to have this, you know. So I call this war a war of, it's a genocidal war. It's declared to wipe out an entire population from the face of the earth. So, and it's happening, by the way, when you deny people access to humanitarian, you know, basic humanitarian needs, when you deny them access to basic services like telecom, internet, electricity, and so on. So there is a complete shutdown in Tigray now. Right now, Tigray has no access to the external world. Families in Tigray, they don't have access to communicate with their friends and families within Ethiopia. So it's a genocide. A genocide is happening right now as we speak in Tigray. So that's what Menelik tried, by the way, in the late 19th century. So yeah, we have this in Tigray at this moment. So I call it a genocidal war project of make Ethiopia Amhara again. We have to call it using its name. That's my personal, by the way, stand. I'm not trying to make this conversation, you know, to go that way. But this is my conviction, whether you like it or not. I know we have this culture of Tigray, especially we have this culture of not calling, you know, bad things using their real name. For example, during our childhood period, if you remember, there are diseases that our families do not want to call them using their name, using their real name. For example, I think measles, I'm not sure if there are people here from the medical background, they can help me. We call them the beautifuls, I think. Takhlai can help me on this. Something like that, the sweetie, the beautiful. But we cannot continue like that when it comes to politics. You have to use the real name. You have to use the real name. There is no babysitting here. We have to tell it the right way. So this is as a background. Okay, going to the reality on the ground right now. What's happening? It's killing. By the way, there is this trend of looting and killing. They are inseparable. They try to loot when people resist or try to protect their property. They kill them. Before that, during when the Federal Army and the Eritrean Army tried to control cities and towns in Tigray, the killing was because of, you know, heavy artillery shelling and airstrike, all that, fighting. But now what we have in the cities, they have full control in the cities and towns. What they do is they loot, and when people come out and protest against the looting or try to resist, they kill them. That's what happened with Nur Hussein in Maqala. He tried to protect his shop in Qadamay Wayane Adaga Qadamay Wayane. It's a marketplace, very famous marketplace in Maqala, historical marketplace. So he tried to protect his shop and they killed him. And the case in Woro, more than 200 people are killed when they try. Most of them are youth, young people. they tried to the Eritrean army. They tried to loot the tannery factory in Woro, laser factory, and when they tried to protect their property and the property of their people, they got killed by the Eritrean army. So more than 200 people are killed because of this reason in Woro. The same is true in Adigrat. When people try to protect their cars, their vehicles, their property, hotel, buildings, they got killed by Eritrean army. Most of the looting are actually committed. The looting and following the killings following the looting are committed by the Eritrean army. In Hagar Salam, in Tambin, most of the killings are committed by Eritrean army. The Eritrean army actually invaded Tigray through, I think, three directions, through Adiabo, northwestern Tigray, and through central Tigray, which is the Rama Adukhala line, and then through the east, Zalambesa, Zorona line. So they controlled all these cities and towns in those directions, all the way to, for example, the army that came through Rama, Adukhala Rama, it controlled, Adwa, and then went all the way to Tembin, Hagar Salam. So in Hagar Salam, most of the people killed by Eritrean army members. Even women are raped in that area, and they looted properties. The looting, it starts from household utensils up to factory machines. So this is one thing. We have a different story in the west and south. Since these areas, the Amharas have territorial claim this is the areas that the Amharas have territorial claim in Tigray. So the killing is committed by the Amhara forces and Fano, the Amhara militia and Fano. So our people who fled their homes and crossed border to Sudan are displaced because of this armed group of Amhara militia and Fano. And the same is true on the southern part of Tigray, Raya, because it's invaded by this Amhara militia and Fano. The same thing happened. The killings are committed by these forces. So it's really sad. We are in a difficult situation, I understand, but we have to keep exposing these killings, these atrocities, these crimes. We have to expose all this to the international media, to the international community. We have to tell openly that this is a genocide, this is war crime, and these people are trying to to bring back the pre-1991 Ethiopia. That was a nation building process that was started by Menelik II, which is making Ethiopia Amhara. So that's why, they are calling people cannibals just because they have a different skin color. They have they use different language because they have different culture. That's all. We didn't get any evidence that these people, the Benshangul Gumuz people, are eating, human flesh. There is no single evidence for that. Just because they happen to have a different, look, darker skin color than the Amhara, just because they happen to speak a different language, just because they have a different culture, they are labeled as cannibals. And chauvinistically, they are told that the Amhara taught them to become civilized, to civilize their culture, their work ethic, all that. This is coming from the Amhara regional government officials from official statement. So they did this in Tigray too. They labeled our people because of the Maikadra massacre that we are savage, inhuman. But what happened, what transpired in Maikadra is actually the reverse, the opposite. Because they couldn't bring any single evidence. What they told us actually to believe a state-run human rights commission in Ethiopia, a commission which was not trustworthy during the killings that happened in Oromia, in the south. They were very quiet and silent against the government's brutality. But now they are, there to parrot the government's propaganda regarding Maikadra. So, but what happened in Maikadra is actually the opposite, because we have pictures. These people couldn't bring a single evidence regarding Maikadra that the Amharas were massacred. They couldn't provide any single evidence, but we have evidences. You can see the New York Times, the coverage given to the situation of people who fled the western part of Tigray, the people who crossed the boundary to Sudan. In fact, that helped the international community to find out what had happened in Maikadra and the rest parts of western Tigray. So this is a reality. You can take, for example, the case of Abrahale, who was attacked by axe and machete. He's now recovering from his wounds. He's in the refugee camp in Hamdayt. You can also take Ashanafi Hailu as example. They put noose on his neck and they dragged him on the ground. He's also recovering from his wounds, the wounds he sustained around his neck, but he couldn't now swallow food. He has difficulty to swallow food. So these are the most horrific, barbaric actions that these people committed on our people. So, but what they are trying to tell the world is the opposite. They bombarded our people with propaganda, with state-run media propaganda in Addis. Even though we have been working tirelessly day and night to expose their crimes on international platform, but what they tried to do is actually to tell our people that people who live outside Tigray was in a complete shutdown during all these times. The people in Tigray, they know about the killings. People are mourning, families are mourning, but the people who live outside Tigray, like in Addis or in Oromia, they have no idea what transpired in Tigray. So it was like killing and then hiding the information. We have this expression in Tigrinya, ክልተ ጊዜ ሞት, dying twice. They kill you and then that's a death, and then they hide your information, and that's the second death. So they are killing us twice. We are dying twice. So this has to stop. We've been very successful still. Compared to what's expected, we still have long distance to go in terms of creating the awareness, informing the international community and media, and putting pressure on Abiy and his cabal. We still need more work, but what we have done so far is amazing. Especially, I would like to appreciate the new generation, the second generation diaspora Tagaru. You guys are amazing. The protesters, your appearance on the media, the letters, using influential people, coordinating your communities everywhere has been tremendous. So I really appreciate that. The killing is still going in Tigray. As long as there is looting, there is killing. It's inseparable. So focus on that, expose that, and I expect people in the IT area to compile all these informations, all these crimes. We need all these informations to bring these people to justice, whether it is back home or on the international platform. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the chance. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Alula. As he said, I think it's clear that there's a state-sponsored genocide happening in Tigray, and people are being killed in broad daylight. So we need to continue what we're doing with more force. Next, also, sorry, just to mention, with the collecting and exposing these things, if you guys have called home and you've heard horrible stories of oppression or any type of anything, let me know and I will register it and your data will be protected completely. You can email me. Mary will put my email in the chat, and I will note it. We will get justice for it all. Up next, we have Maza, and we have a question. The question that came on for you was, why is the international community not acting as swiftly as they probably should, and what more can we do as the Tagaru diaspora community to help the people back home?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me again. First of all, I would like to send my appreciation to everyone who has been working tirelessly to organize this, and also for your all advocacy. Thank you again. That's a very tough question because it's hard. I can't say they don't know what's happening on the ground, because for all we know, the superpowers do have eyes and ears everywhere. They do control the global political atmosphere and all. They know what's happening. They know innocent Tigrayans are being murdered in broad daylight. They know our resources are being looted. They know we are facing ethnic cleansing, systemic ethnic cleansing. It's not even just a war, it's an ethnic cleansing. So they know all of this. But despite that fact, they remain to be hesitant to take a concrete action that would actually put an end to the war. And that's mainly, I would say it's because they're national interest. In politics, there is nothing free. That everything comes with a price. And the global political system works, it's like a market. You give and you take something. Although as it depends to which school of thought you adhere to, but if you're a rationalist person or a realist person, you would think people are always after power. They do things that would help them gain more power. The power could be translated in so many different ways. It could be an economic power, it could be political power and whatnot. So that's the main reason. I think we as Tigrayans, we need to identify what exactly it is that the key international players would have, like, what are their interests in Ethiopia? Why do we want the US government to take a concrete action and to put sanctions on Abiy? What would they get out of it? Because one thing we need to understand is no international actor or no Western country is going to come and save us just out of the sheer kindness they have. It's always about protecting their interest. And so as Tigrayans, we need to identify their interest. What is it? What exactly do they want in Ethiopia? And so is there anything we can provide as Tigrayans? So this might be something that needs to be done on the higher political or diplomatic level. But as civilians, what we need to do is we need to continue knocking their doors, from at least reminding them from time and now that they pretend to be guardians of democracy, and Tigrayans are being subjugated to all these atrocities only because they exercise their democratic right to elect their leaders. And also, if these countries are truly guardians of democracy and beacons of hope and equality, then they should protect a group of people who try to exercise the same kind of principles, but instead of being able to do so, they're being bombed, killed, and looted day in, day out. So that's the thing. But another thing is we shouldn't lose hope. As I said the other day, the international political system is very fluid. We don't have such a thing as an international police. We only have intergovernmental institutions that are very intricate and complex in their workings. So they do not take actions immediately. They tend to be very slow because, as I said earlier, they need to weigh their national interest. So we shouldn't lose hope. We have to continue fighting. The more they remain silent, the more vocal we need to be. And to do that, we have to be creative. We have to be creative in how we amplify the plight of our people. If we have to knock each and everyone's member of parliament's house, we have to do it. There is no shame in doing that, because unless we do it, they're just going to focus only on the humanitarian aspect of it, just like what we're seeing right now. You see the European Union taking a very great leadership in terms of, urging for humanitarian corridor and all, but we very well know that this is a politically provoked war, and providing humanitarian aid is not going to stop it. Just because you provide our people with the very basic needs of shelter, food, and whatnot, they're not going to be protected, because this war, the ultimate goal of this war is to subjugate and to exterminate Tigrayans. And so unless that root cause is fixed, Tigray will continue to bleed, Tigray will continue to cry. And to do that, there needs to be an immediate cessation of hostilities. There needs to be an immediate stoppage of the bombing and the shelling and everything. So to do this, we need to pressure the international community not to see the war on Tigray from a humanitarian perspective alone. We need them to talk about the political impact of it. That way, we can root out the cause from its ground and hopefully bring peace and stability to not only to Tigray, but also to the Horn of Africa. We also need to demand the immediate restoration of the democratically elected government of Tigray. Because what you see, I heard Tigray and Laka trying to touch upon it. Tigray and Alula earlier. What's happening is the parts of Tigray that are invaded by occupying forces, they're being forced to live under an Amhara leadership. These are Tagaru people who have fought for their self-determination right for centuries. As Tigrayans, the one right that we hold dear to our heart is the right to self-administration. And so you cannot occupy our land, force our people to be refugees, kill them, murder our resources, and at the same time try to impose a leadership that we didn't elect, that we didn't vote for. And so in our advocacy, the key things that we need to amplify are, first, we need an immediate cessation of hostilities, because war is happening in every part of the country, in every part of the region. So we need that to come to an end right now. And the second should be restoration of the democratically elected government of Tigray. If that doesn't happen, all people will continue to be subjugated. They would continue to be forced to live under a leadership that they didn't vote for. So their will and their vote needs to be respected, and that can only be done if the regional government that they elected is restored. So we need to continue amplifying that. But I think the international community, particularly the youth, I understand we have been doing our very best, but we need to be more vocal. And given the fact that holiday season is approaching, government offices, officials will be busy, you know, with Christmas, New Year and whatnot. So we have to remind them that our people are actually, we know Christmas. Tigray has been celebrating Christianity ever since the early 4th century. We're one of the very first people to accept Christianity and to celebrate Christmas. But right now, we don't have that luxury. So we need to remind people that people are dying left and right as the European or the international community prepares for Christmas and New Year. So before that holiday comes, we have to make sure that they pass some sort of legislation that would actually help us to put an end to the war.
Thank you. Thank you, Mazi. So yeah, as you said, don't underestimate your place in all of this as Tagaro diaspora. We are a minority in Tigray and we need to be as loud as we can and don't lose hope. Next.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, of course.
So you were talking about how we need to document atrocities that we hear of. So in addition to documenting it locally, meaning within our Tigray community, we have to send it to international journalists. Because if we don't do that, then they don't get the spotlight we want them to get. So please go to Twitter and see journalists from the BBC, from I think CNN and others. They have been asking for first-hand information from back home. So before we send them, we have to push for them to go and report from the ground, because Tigray is still in a communications blackout and there is no way people would be able to send them any kind of information that they're looking for via internet, because I have seen them asking people from back home to send them videos and pictures. How are they going to do that? There is only spotty phone connection in Maqala, and even in Maqala, it's not everywhere in the city. It's like in some areas. So we have to push these journalists to go there and report from the ground. They shouldn't be expecting people who are under complete communication blackout to send them evidence. That's lazy journalism. So we have to push them to go there. They can go there through Sudan. They're international journalists. They should push Abiy Ahmed into giving them the passage that they need. They have to talk with their representative, talk with their government, and make sure that, you know, they get the access, because they cannot just sit in their homes and expect people who are dying to send them information. First of all, they don't have the means. Second of all, it's very cruel to ask of us to send us information when we very well know that the communication is being controlled by the federal government. So we have to push for international journalists to go and report from the ground. But whenever we have the access to any kind of information from Adi, let's make sure that we send it directly to the journalists. Unless we do that, I have seen a lot of us posting pictures of some brothers and sisters that have been shot in Maqala, in Wuqru, and elsewhere. But us posting it on Facebook may not get the kind of traction or the kind of impact that we wanted. But if we send it to international media organizations, hopefully if they take it as a portable resource, then maybe we'll be able to put some kind of dent on this overall struggle that we're going through. So let's make sure to do that. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. So don't let
Rita.
So go on. Sorry.
Yeah, while we are at it, I would just like to share a piece of information regarding documentation. We actually have set up a website for exactly that purpose, tighat.com, TGHT.com. So if any one of you has any information regarding atrocities being committed, or people laid off or jailed or harassed or anything of that nature, anything that you think is worth documenting, please contact me or Desta. I don't know if Desta is following us here, or directly go to tighat.com and contact us, and we will make sure that it gets documented, because we have set up that website for this purpose. So just wanted to share that information. Yeah.
So just to make it easier for everyone, I think everyone is familiar with the I Stand With Tigray.com website. People have been using it aggressively for tweet decks and whatnot. So maybe we can align both websites. I'll talk to you, Takhla, after this, and we'll find a way how people can find the particular website that you guys developed for documentation purpose, we'll integrate it with istandwithtigray.com so that people could easily go there and access it.
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be
Yeah.
very difficult to, you know, reach out to people individually. So we'll just put it there.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Great, thank you. So yeah, don't let anything go unreported and push the journalists to do their jobs properly. So up next, I think last but not least, we have Absala, a 17-year-old girl who has been trying her best to do what she can for Tigray. Would you like to say a few words, Absala? Are you here?
Yeah, I would like to say a few words. I want everybody to know, yeah, this war is happening, but we can't allow it to bring us down. We have to make sure that we use this war to empower ourselves and to bring attention to it, because it's not just like we have to understand that this war is not just happening in Tigray. Tigray is us. Like Tigray is me, right? So we have to take it seriously. We have to take it into account that it's our families that are being killed. It's our families that are being hurt. And when I say our families, it might not just be directly, but if another Tigray family gets, that's also my family, because everybody that's Tigray is my family, and that's our family. And we can't allow all the hate comments. We can't allow Abiy Ahmed himself to silence us, because that's impossible. We also have to understand that when we see all this news saying like maybe supporting Abiy Ahmed in a way, we have to understand that these news stations have not been to Tigray. They haven't touched Tigray's ground, and we have to push them to actually advocate for themselves and say, okay, we want to go to Tigray and record what's happening, report what's happening, because they haven't already been to Tigray. There's no journalists that have been to Tigray and report anything, because they're not allowed, and we want them to go to Tigray as we are. Like, I just wish they can go to Tigray, report everything that's happening, because if they were able to go to Tigray and report it, then people could actually see and have a visual of what's happening in Tigray. But we're not able to do that because obviously Abiy Ahmed is not allowing it. And we have to do our best, because he's not allowing it. We can't stop. We have to keep doing our best. We have to keep pushing. We have to make sure that what's happening in Tigray is amplified, that everybody in the world is aware of what's happening, and we're the ones that can do it. And when I say we, I mean we as the diaspora, we're the ones that can do it, the youth. And I want you guys to don't stop. Please don't stop fighting. The fight does not stop. Like, Abiy Ahmed is already lying to the world, saying the war ended, the war this. We can't allow his lies to be what's being amplified. We have to try to silence his lies, because he's lying. If he's lying, then he needs to be silenced. But we're being honest. We need to make sure that our voices are amplified. And there's this I always try to put out whenever I go to protest, because I always write my demands, and I think this is like what everybody actually wants to hear too. So I'm just going to state those. So Abiy Ahmed Prime Minister power ended on October 6, 2020, making him a dictator. We demand that all political and innocent civilians outside of Tigray region, over 120K, in prison, to be released. We demand that the Ethiopian government restores telecommunication, internet, and power. We demand the Ethiopian government stops the bombing of churches, schools, and hospitals. We demand that the Ethiopian government stops bombing in Tigray. We demand that the raping of women stops immediately. We demand that civilians of Tigray have access to aid. We demand that journalists are allowed to go into Tigray and report the horror actions Abiy Ahmed is taking against Tigray, Ethiopia citizens. We demand that Abiy Ahmed releases the yearly budget for Tigray. We demand that the banks in Tigray open. We demand that the roads to Sudan are open as well. We demand that the intervention of Isaias Afwerki to stop immediately. Countries selling military drones to dictator Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, that their products are being used to kill innocent civilians in Tigray. This is a gross violation of human rights. We demand that the expedition that have entered Tigray by force to leave immediately, so that Tigrayans can live peacefully. Over 50,000 innocent Tigrayans are refugees in Sudan currently, and we need that to end. We need to stop allowing them to force our people to flee. We see them celebrating, partying, like that's inhumane. We have to make sure to be there for our own people. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I would also like to thank everybody for inviting me here, for allowing me to come on here and speak my mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on, Absla. You continue doing what you're doing. You've been amazing. So yeah, as she said, keep doing what you're doing, everyone. And yeah, I need to just say one last word on Ethiopian Airlines. So I think a lot of us here are aware that Ethiopian Airlines is ethnically profiling flight passengers, but also all their employees, and firing a lot of Tagaru, including the CEO, Tawalda Gabramariam, is under house arrest. He's worked tirelessly to make Ethiopian Airlines great. So please don't use Ethiopian Airlines if you can help it. And yeah, so don't use Ethiopian Airlines, and hashtag boycott Ethiopian Airlines whenever you tweet about them.
Can I speak, Rita, here?
Yes, Melaf just wants to say one word, and then you can go now. Melaf?
Yeah, hey. I just quickly want to just talk about the fact that the war is not just in Tigray. Although that's the conflict zone, this is a war against an ethnic minority, which is why it's leading to genocide. So we need to categorize it as a war against an ethnic group. This is not just a war within that region and that's that. We are facing ethnic extermination throughout the whole country. So again, like you guys have all been saying, the war hasn't ended. Returning phone lines to some parts of Ma'ala is not good enough. All of Tigray is Ma'ala, and we shouldn't be satisfied with the little drops of candy that we're being given to silence us from the bigger picture, from the bigger problem. This is rooted in the political ideology differences that the regional government of Tigray has had with the federal government, and it can only be solved through political dialogue between these two parties. Opening phone lines and saying that they placed an administration board which was not elected by Tagaru in Tigray, therefore does not represent them, having no representation within the parliament. All of these things are basically elements of why the Tigray can't be stable and will not be stable, because they're not represented correctly. Therefore, we need to call it what it is as well, which is an ethnic war against Tagaru throughout Ethiopia. It's not just in Tigray, it's throughout Ethiopia. Like you've just been saying, Ethiopian Airlines, even the AU. So it goes as far as internationalizing this ethnic profiling of Tagaru and this extermination. Even in the AU, we've got Tagaru being fired upon the instructions of the administration in Addis Ababa. So we really need to contextualize what this war is. I know you guys have repeatedly said that, but this is ethnic profiling, and it's an ethnic war against Tagaru internationally and also within the whole country of Ethiopia as a whole. Yeah, I just want to say that.
Okay. Thank you. Dakhla.
Yeah, more information regarding Ethiopian Airlines. We have been able to confirm that Ethiopian Airlines has been engaged in discriminating Tagaru, and people have been laid off simply because they are Tagaru. People have been barred from flying, hostesses and pilots, and people have been put on leave without pay, and they haven't been given any justifications as to why. And in response to that, we are trying to do two things. Number one, we are trying to develop a story because we believe this story is too big to ignore. Number two, we are trying to make international media to pick up the story and report it. And we are also trying to, like as Rita said, to launch a campaign to boycott Ethiopian Airlines. So I would just like to ask you to relay any information that you have to us. You can do it in an anonymous way. It doesn't matter whether you give us the names of the people. We just need the information as to what has actually happened. So we're trying to compile and develop a story. So any information you have, any reporting you have, please relay it to us. So I'm making a request. Thank you.
Yeah, and where can they relay it to us? Should I give my email?
You can relay it to me personally, or to you, Rita, right? It works.
Yeah.
Or even to Maza, I think, and then we can talk. So that you can relay to anyone that you know. It doesn't matter.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you all to the speakers and to the people who prepared this this talk. It's it's a part of the struggle. And as a last word, I just wanted to say, Tagaru, the Tagaru diaspora in general, please don't waste your energy on warmongers and trying dialogue with them and things like that. Preserve your energy, use it effectively for Tigray. Tweet, speak to the international community. We need international intervention. We don't need anything from the people who are advocating for war against our own people. Leave them alone, let them do what they're doing. You do you, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And thank you all so much for attending. Unless anybody has any last words, that's it for us.
Just a quick thanks to Rita, who's worked very tirelessly to organize this, got all of us together, did all the prep. So thank you, Rita, for organizing this.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Maybe we should try
Take care. Take care.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe let's try to do this on a regular basis. That way we keep our youth and then the diaspora community informed, because things are shifting every minute. There is new development every second. So it's important that we all stay informed. That way we can have an informed advocacy. So I know it's not easy bringing everyone together. It's quite understandable how tiresome it would be, but as Taglai said earlier, this is the least we can do for our people. So let's try to incorporate more people and have it on a regular basis. That way we can have more impactful meetings and impactful advocacy all together. I just wanted to put that out there. And there were a couple of questions on the question and answer box. I was just going through them. And one of the questions that I wanted to speak about, I know I'm taking too much of your time, but is someone was asking, should we share information regarding ethnic profiling in Addis? And absolutely yes. To add to what Meilat said earlier, this is not just a war, it's a systemic ethnic cleansing. So to show that we can use the ethnic profiling that's happening elsewhere, like not within Tigray, but much beyond that, we can use it as evidence. So if you have any kind of evidence whatsoever, please forward it. I saw an email here. It says Defend Tigray genocide at gmail.com, right? Is it? Yeah. So you could send it to that email. That way everything would be organized, and Taglai and everyone else would have access to it, and they can use it to, effectively file a lawsuit or something. And so anything you see in Addis, please do share it, because we know from hearing from family members, we know the level of pain that our people are going back home. They're literally being asked to fund the war in order for them to stay alive. They're being asked to contribute money. And this is only if they're lucky. Otherwise, they'll be, arrested and sent to congregation centers and interim camps in where we don't know. And there have been over 100 Tigrayan employees of Ethiopian Airlines who were arrested. One of them is Yirga. He's our brother. You guys might have seen his picture on Facebook or Twitter. He is the #1 advocate of Tigrayan children to have access to clean water and education. He has been working for that for his entire life, and now he's arrested. We don't even know where exactly they arrested him. So there are similar stories of everyone. These are just only the ones that were on TV. These are the only ones that we're aware of, but we know there are millions and millions of Tagaru who are going through the same pain. So if you know anything, please do share it with anyone you see here in the panel, or to the email, or to any means you can. That way we can, we have to be their voice, because they're also Tagaru. They're going through something no human should ever go through. So let's do that. I just wanted to put that out there. But thank you so much for everything you guys are doing.
May I interject again? I'm sorry, we're dragging this on more than we should. I think we're
No
standing
worries,
between,
no problem.
we're standing between people going to bed and yeah. But anyways, I would just like to add a word of caution here. On the one hand, we want to document and report everything, like everything literally. On the other hand, in doing so, we don't want to put people in harm's or in dangerous way, because the government would retaliate or retribute. So we're designing a safe way of doing this. But in the meantime, you can be sure that we are going to maintain anonymity. So we're not going to reveal your names or anything of that nature. So feel safe. But in general, we are going to have a like an institutional way of reporting without putting anyone in danger or in any compromising situation. So I just want to give a word of advice to anyone to make sure that you are paying attention to that, because the government is they don't have any moral scruple. They're going to unleash anything against people that they think have any ties or connection with us. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you work with people back home. I'm sorry for yeah.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, we will be careful with data, with people's data, and we encourage everybody else to be very careful with the data too, for their safety. One last thing, Madeleine and Feleg are going live on Humans of Tigray on Instagram. So if you want to go and tune in, it's a collaboration between the Americans, Australians, and the British Tagaru, and they'll be saying a few words on there. So you can go and join them at 11 p.m. British GMT, British time. And yeah, and we should do this more often, maybe weekly, but I'll speak to Maza and Tigray Media House and try to set that up so that we are more informed and more equipped in making our points for Tigray. Okay. Well, thank you everyone, and have a lovely evening. I'll be ending it now.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank